And we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 38 of Narrations and Lamentations with Mittierim and the boys. I am your host, as always, Mittierim. And with me are the boys, Skip and Michael. Say hi, fellas.
Howdy.
Hello.
And tonight, as our special guest for a second attempt, we have my lovely wife, Alicia Merritt. Can you say hi?
No.
Okay. Well, then, would you like to tell people who may not have seen you before who the hell you are?
Hi, people I've never seen before.
Awesome. This show is getting off swimmingly.
Okay.
No, that's fine. You missed your turn. I gave you the opportunity to talk yourself up. Now
Good.
you don't get it, so there.
All right, that's fine.
All right. So last week we were supposed to be doing a Women in Warhammer bit, but it didn't work because Google sucks. But since we already had that hour-and-a-half conversation, and I really don't feel like doing it again, and there's really not much that's interesting in the topic past what we already did, we're going to do a different show tonight, and it's going to be one of my RPG Talks videos. This will be focused on sort of our best and worst in our RPG life. So, sorry for those of you who are focused on Warhammer. This is not really going to be one of those shows. But for you RPG happy viewers, this should be right down your alley. So, because of that, I'm not even going to really get into hobby time, because I don't think any of us have been working on anything too huge to begin with. So what I want to do first, just as a overview so folks know kind of what we're doing, I want everyone to go around and tell how long they've been role-playing and what the first role-playing game they were ever involved in was. Skip, you've got the longest history. Why don't you go first?
Yes, my little tag down here says I've been gaming since the Ford administration, back in the late 70s when Dungeons & Dragons first came out. And I actually played, I guess, Basic would be the thing where you were actually, your race was actually your class. So that's how far back I go.
Okay. Michael?
I started young. I was probably 8 when I started playing, so...
So that was, what, 3
years?
years ago? 4 years ago?
been gaming about 15 years. And I got started in 3.5, because, you guys give me shit for that all the time.
Because your gaming start was terrible and that game is horrible. And just to let everybody know, I am... have just finished hour 1,000,000,008 of the busiest time of year for my company. I'm exhausted and super snarky today, so if you're expecting me to be even-tempered and fair-minded or anything through the rest of this show, I have the opinion you're going to be incredibly disappointed. So I will just say that and apologize ahead of time for the people I end up pissing off. So, okay, Alicia, why don't you give us how long you've been gaming and the first game you got involved in?
I love how you're apologizing for your normal mannerisms.
And I told you it's a matter of inches. It's different today, and I feel angry today. Like I'm looking for somebody to say something stupid so I can tear them apart. Usually, it's just a happy coincidence when I stumble upon them.
All right. Well, I got started at the tender age of, I'm going to call it 17.
So just like Michael 3 or 4 years ago, right?
Oh, thank you.
Just because I'm in a snarky mood doesn't mean I'm not going to try and score points where I can.
And I was introduced to the hobby with 3rd edition D&D. Now, I don't consider myself actually role-playing at that point because I was more getting the system down, and I got to play maybe all of I'm going to say 6 sessions. I'm going to be generous.
Okay, so that comes to me. I've been playing since I was 9 years old, and the original game I started playing was Dungeons and Dragons, but it was a reprint of the basic set. So I did start my first few games in the whole world of Elf was a class, though I went to second ed very, very quickly thereafter, and that's where I played most of my life. So what we're going to talk about is I've got some kind of few questions, and there are some questions from the groups where we're just going to talk about kind of the best and the worst of various things relating to the hobby of role-playing and kind of see what's going on. Now, this did come from a video I did earlier of my worst experience in role-playing ever.
I'm out.
Yeah. Sorry, Alicia's got to run. Our oven is not working, so dinner is taking way, way longer than it should. But I did a video a little earlier, a couple weeks now, of the worst RPG experience or worst player I ever had. And amusingly enough, I was contacted by another player that I played with in college who was like, well, damn, that's not the worst player I remember. So, and I would have told that story, but I'm not going to because it is absolutely inappropriate for me to commit to a video. I have no desire to talk about it while I'm recorded. But I figure we could talk about other things, talk about other goods and bads. So we're going to start off with some softball questions. First softball question to you guys. What is the best game you've ever played, and what is the worst game you've ever played? And this can be from the point of view of, let's focus less on the GMs specifically or the players. Let's focus on the game itself. Is there good or bad things of the game itself that cause these ratings? So, who's first?
Go ahead, Michael.
So we're talking just straight out like game mechanics.
Yeah, we're just talking about straight out gameplay and mechanics.
Okay.
Or I mean, I guess if fluff is better for you, and there's just been a game you played that has an amazing backstory and fluff, you can count that too. Or one that's just stupid and retarded.
Well, I would say fluff wise, that's really what the GM makes out of it. I mean, you can have a terrible mechanic system and have a great fluff to it just because of GM. But best one I've ever, which unfortunately being born into 3.5, the best one I've ever had is the second edition rule set, because when you go from the point of view of third and drop back an edition, you think, oh, this is going to be terrible, and you realize, oh my god, all of this is really super awesome. Why did I not get introduced to this way earlier?
Okay. And do you have a worst?
See, the worst that I've ever played is fourth.
Okay. Why is that?
It's way too much. I guess the issue I have with it is in, like, comparing to second. Second is very much you have to build yourself up to be a hero. Fourth edition, you just start out level 1, you're a hero.
Mm-hmm.
And that just annoys me.
So you just don't feel that there's the hero's journey there in terms of your powers and abilities?
I feel like the adventuring is the journey to be a hero.
Yeah. All right, Skip, what about you? Best and worst?
Okay, my best, I would guess, is a tie. I played in my college days in a Champions game that actually was based in the Batman world. We had one person who showed up every week as Batman, One person showed up every week as Batgirl, and the rest of our friends would rotate in every week playing one of the villains. I ended up playing the Riddler. We had somebody playing the Joker, blah, blah, blah. So that was really cool using the champion system.
Mhm.
The other one was, if you've ever read Mutants and Masterminds Noir, that was a game that, or a supplement that was created based on our normal Champions game, based in the late 50s. And that was a really exciting game, and now it's in print too. So those are my two best games that I've been in.
Okay.
Um,
Oh,
Worst-
sorry, we got to do
Yeah,
worst.
let him finish.
okay,
I'm sorry, he said 2. I got confused.
that's all right. The worst game I've ever been in was, I would have to say, a Twilight 2000 game, because I'm not really big on post-apocalyptic stuff, and it just didn't do anything for me. I didn't like the system. I didn't like the the fluff, everything. So I would say that would be my worst game.
Okay. Alicia?
Worst would be the when White Wolf decided to junk their world and recreate it into their new maid and new werewolf and new vampire books. I ended up. He had to close the door. I ended up being in a Mage the Awakening game, and it was pretty god awful. And the system was absolute garbage compared to the old Mage system. I don't know why they rebooted in the first place. It was terrible. Best game? I'm gonna go with 2. And one of the best games that I was in was our Amber Diceless game when I first got into role-playing. And I don't know, D&D, name a campaign.
All right. Well, I'll go with mine, and I'm actually going to change my answers because I don't want to repeat, so I'm going to go, mine will end up being like second best and second worst, I guess. Well, no, it'd be first worst. But the one I actually like is the TSR Marvel Superheroes game. It is very, very simple mechanics. It's D100s on a chart. I love the random superhero creation tables. It's just a lot of fun for good old knockdown, drag 'em out superhero fun. Which is good because really, if you look at a lot of superhero games, they tend to get overly complicated, like Champions or the Hero system, which has never really drawn me. Now, my worst is, I don't know if this is cheating by not copying one, but during the days of 4th edition, Wizards of the Coast re-released Gamma World.
Oh yeah, that was terrible.
And yeah, it was bad. It's like, take the worst parts of 4th edition and add a fucking card game to it. And that's really what you're looking at in terms of that version of, and it sucked. It was really obnoxious, and I'm sure people out there who love it will tear me up, but no, it sucked. Get on with your lives. It was terrible. The only game I've ever played where incorporating cards into it has made any goddamn sense is Deadlands. So everybody else that tries to pull that crap off just needs to go right to hell, because you're gonna fail. I'm going to take a break here before we get to our second question, because the comment boards are freaking lighting up. Yeah, like
People care about this mess.
we are being watched by more people than we usually get watched by. So, Caleb Goodson asks if I ever got the flump stuff he sent me. Yes, I did, but this week has been absolutely incredibly busy. I have not had a chance to sit down and look at it. So thank you very much for sending that. War General T says that the worst game is always when his PC dies. Okay. And Nicholas says he loves the new mage system and he likes 4E. Well, it's all right, Nicholas. We don't hate you because you're wrong. We like you because you're watching the show. So, I don't know about the new mage system. I have not played it. Alicia did, but and for 4th edition, for what it is, it's not a bad game, but it's not Dungeons and Dragons. And I went into that in depth in another video, so we're not going to hit that. And Caleb Goodson pops in again. Skip, you should look at Heroes Unlimited. It's a great superhero RPG, he says.
I've read it. I haven't played it, but I've read just about every hero system because I'm a big superheroes nut. So, but I have never played it.
Yeah, I went through it, and again, I think it comes to the same edition. I mean, it's Palladium, basically.
Yeah,
and ultimately, I think that's just too complicated for superheroes. Superheroes needs to be fast. It needs to be light and quick. And really, the only one that I've gotten that works with that is the Marvel system. And Caleb mentions how 4th edition ripped the community to pieces and that it was sad to watch. I'll actually say that the community got ripped up way the hell before that. 2nd to 3rd was just as bad, if not worse. But, okay, so that's our comments. We're caught up at this point. So, now this is going to be a similar question, but while we focused on the game itself, I want to know what your best and worst game masters have been and why.
Oh.
Well, I can.
Well, I mean, I'll go first. Jeez, guys.
Okay.
Jeez.
All right, Michael, shoot it.
Best one so far has been you. You know how to run a game, you know how to make the storyline interesting, and you know how to, when we make a mistake, not go overly heavy-handed with it and just kill us, but teach us a lesson so that we don't forget it.
Well, of course not. If I kill you, then there's no one left to suffer.
Worst one was back in the very beginning of my gaming career.
Mm-hmm.
My first GM, actually. It wasn't that he was a bad GM, that he didn't tell the story right. He was just way too harsh on the characters. We literally got one session, about halfway through it, and we all died. It was gross.
Yeah, that sucks. So just for the record, anybody who would like to repeat his favorite choice or his best choice may feel free to do so. Who's up next?
I'll go next.
Okay.
I'm going to kind of break this up into genres real quick. The best Dungeons and Dragons game is yours, okay? Hands down. Best superhero would be, and shameless plug for my friend Christopher McLaughlin with Green Ronin. He ran both Champions and Star Trek, and I had a fun time in that. And Todd Kingria, who used to write for Cthulhu. His Cthulhu games still give me nightmares.
Awesome. And your worst?
Any game that I run as a GM.
So you are your worst GM.
I am my worst.
Do you got a reason behind that?
Yeah. I'm very good at coming up with the story in my head, but it's really hard for me to implement it on a gaming table.
Mm-hmm.
So,
all right.
I think
Alicia?
Boo.
Boo.
I don't know that I've really had any oh my god, terrible DMs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a couple of them have been, oh my god, boring to tears, but not terrible.
I think boring to tears fully counts as terrible.
Yeah.
Well, they were boring to tears, but I still had fun at the game because I was interacting with other people.
Well, that's still... We're going to get into players in a minute. That's the next question.
Yeah. This is worst GM.
Well, the thing is like they weren't terrible enough to ruin the game experience. I don't know that that's like considered like worst.
Mm.
Um,
If you don't want to call out a worst, you don't have to.
Thank you.
So best?
Best? Because I am not going to shine you on like everyone else is. I'm not going to pick you. Nah.
Yeah. Now, just for the record, this is the girl who is currently sitting 418 experience away from her next level in my D&D game. So you've got to at least admire her integrity that she's not playing for extra experience points during this show.
Because you won't give me any.
Sure would be a shame for that character to encounter a dragon randomly.
So I can polymorph it and get all of its experience for myself? Oh no. No, let's not do that. Any rate, I'm gonna call the best GM would be when I used to go to cons and I cannot remember his name, unfortunately. I would play in this one guy's cyberpunk game every time we went, and my character would always end up getting late into the session. By men, by women, didn't matter. My character got laid.
and whenever you get laid, it's a good game, right?
Pretty much. That's my stick.
Yeah. So I'll answer mine, and then Vince is bringing us a bunch of factual information to get in the way of my hate, which I may have to address.
No facts here.
I'm actually going to say my best game master is actually Alicia. She runs very, very rarely, but her games, she when she creates her own world, they're very different. But she's had luck at making things that are very different that do not lose the flavor of the game. Usually D&D. And so, I mean, she comes up with these whole new cosmologies and new character races and stuff like that, but it still feels like what I want to sit down and play. So that's that. The worst GM I ever played under was a fella I played under in high school. And he's such a bad DM that it has influenced my gaming from that point to the current one. He was one of those guys who just absolutely took the player versus DM thing to just an nth degree. And on top of that, he used his DM powers for favoritism. I mean, far be it that you were a girl he liked in the game, because you would never be able to do wrong. While everyone else is getting their teeth kicked in by super orcs. And that was the other thing. I still, to this day, do not use orcs in any game I run, because he made me hate that monster race with such a passion. This guy had the biggest hard-on for orcs. It didn't matter what level you were, when we encountered them, what the story was. These orcs were fucking ubermensch orcs that would smear everything in the face. And I'm just like, they're orcs, dude. They're one-hit die creatures. This should be the shit we should be punking at level 1 and leaving behind. And they just... It's like the orcs leveled up faster than we did, and it was just constant orc beat down in the face. It's like, how many times can you murder orcs and have it still be exciting? So that's my answer to that question. So to go to Vince, he is correcting me that second to third seems bad, but he's not sure the numbers support that. Saying that at first the community was far more behind the Switch than 3. Yes, I agree with you, but it's still bad in my brain, and yes, there were a lot of people that swallowed the Kool-Aid and are still swallowing the Kool-Aid, but that doesn't make them any better people. So, yeah, there's and he says, talking about with its continued success and the continued success of Pathfinder, there was and continues to be a strong market for the product. Absolutely. But it is successful in my mind in the same way that Michael Bay films are successful.
Explosion!
Yeah, they're explosions and stupid, and it's not a good product, and people should demand better, but they don't, and it makes me sad at the universe because they don't.
Lowest common denominator.
Right. So that's my hate. That's my cup of hate for that one. Um, and then Caleb Goodson says he's always game master. He can't think of any time when he wasn't running a game. And I'll be honest, like, I have a lot of that problem too. I run games a lot, like probably 99% of the time we play. In fact, I've had a little bit of DM's block recently and kind of forced Skip at gunpoint to take over playing the weekly game, and that lasted for a couple months. But beyond that, I play all the time. Most of my experience as a player stems from high school, basically, and early college. And whenever I can convince Alicia to run a little side game. All right, so we have talked about DMs. Now we're going to talk about players. Who has been the worst player that you've ever played with? Either run a game for or sat at the table with. Best and worst.
Wow, there have been so many.
I actually have this one.
Well, you go first then. You were supposed to be going first as our guest anyway, so.
What the hell ever. No, my worst player is you. You are the absolute worst person to DM for in all of recorded history. You are terrible and you should feel bad.
Can you explain to the people, because I actually agree with your estimation, but please explain to the people why.
Okay, so I run a campaign. I am terrible at running campaigns. It's hard enough for me to do this. I have people sit down and make characters. Okay, the characters are done. Josh, however, will sit there and make 5 or 6 characters in the span between the time we make characters and I finally get to running the game. So by the time I have planned for it, he's changed his character 5 times. Not only that, but after we get into it, his character will either completely run roughshod over my campaign and I can't get anything past him, or he'll play for a session, maybe 2, as one character, and then immediately be like, I'm bored, I want to do this now.
I absolutely stand by everything that she just said and totally admit it. I will, however, come up with an explanation as to why I do this. I get to play games, on average, as a player once a decade. So I've got all these character ideas just, like, backed up in my head, and as soon as I get it, it's like draining the pus out of a freaking boil. It just comes all over and causes a mess on everything. But no, I absolutely agree. I am a god-awful, terrible player. And nobody should let me out from behind the DM screen if they know what's good for them. Great DM, terrible player.
Alright. Best player was Hope. I loved Hope thing. She was just so warm, and she had this aura of just making everybody work together, even though it was a game where you could easily devolve into backbiting and let's kill each other and destroy each other just because we can. Because Amber is like that. It's got no real rules, and there's no reason to party up. But somehow she managed to take this ragtag group of jerk-offs and make us work together in a game that is not cooperative. So yeah, she's the best player ever.
Mm-hmm. I will actually agree. That was my Amber game that she's talking about, and I have not run a successful Amber game since without her influence, because it's so easy for that game to just devolve into a giant diceless dick measuring contest. So I will definitely concede to that particular part of your opinion. What's up? Who's got another one? And just for the record, if you guys want to talk about certain players we're currently playing with, just don't use names.
I've got the worst one.
Okay.
In all my years of gaming, it happened to happen in your game. Mr. Creepy.
Oh yeah.
Oh God, that guy. Oh.
Go ahead and tell the story, because
Okay.
yeah.
Michael had left for a time, so we were trying to find somebody to fill his shoes, so to speak. And Josh, I can't remember what site he posted on, but he got a response from one of the gaming sites, and the guy showed
It was
up.
Meetup. It was Meetup.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he showed up. He seemed to be kind of nice to begin with. Older guy, I think. But his picture that he had up there didn't look anything like him. Or was it like his high school picture or something?
Yeah, that's what I got to figure.
Yeah. So anyway, all I can remember, I know he said a couple of weird things, but all I can remember is just he just sat there and stared at you, and just stared. Even when you're talking, even when you weren't talking, he would sit there and stare, and it just freaked me the hell out.
And we're not even talking like a normal, like I'm just looking at you. It's like
Right.
the big eyes, I'm going to stare to the back of your skull. And he would never say anything, and it was creepy as shit.
Mm-hmm. and I've played and survived in Cthulhu games that weren't that creepy. It was just, ugh, you know? Ugh.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah. Glad you missed that one, Michael.
Yeah, I'm glad I missed it too. I don't think I could have handled that. I don't do good with creepy people.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so what's your best?
Oh, gosh. Best. Golly. You better come back to me on best.
All right.
I got to think about that one.
What you got, Michael? You got to give me best or worst now.
Let's see. Best would have to be the guy, his name is John, who we gamed with under the worst GM I ever had that I just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was probably one of the few people I've ever met that game and who will literally sacrifice their character every time for no apparent reason. It's not even that he's a good player.
That's not the sign of a good player. That's the sign of a good meat shield.
He's not. But he was so funny about it. Like, his character, and he'd always make characters, it wasn't that they didn't have a reason to go do it. They always had a really good reason to go do it. And he'd argue the point was like, dude, don't touch the door. It's a trap. He'd be like, no, but my character must. He's got OCD and it's not clean. And so he'd go up and scrub the door and then trap pitfall. And like, what the hell, man? He always had these quirks with his characters and followed them to the letter. And it was probably not mechanically wise, terrible. Role-playing wise, fantastic.
Awesome. So, do you have a worst?
Yes. As a matter of fact, it's also from that same game. I experienced a lot when I was like 9.
Yeah, I guess. Damn.
This guy's name was Mike. And he was a tool bag. He was a douche. He'd argue the rules with you every single time. And he was typically wrong about the rules. No, my longsword does D12 damage. Yeah, but you're fighting an orc. But it does D12. No, you're fighting an orc. They're medium size. You do a D8. No, D12. It's like, dude, whatever. You're dead. Which might be why the GM was so heavy-handed with us.
Mm-hmm. So, Skip, do you have your best, or I can go on with mine? Okay, go for it.
I have it. Okay. It was back in my Star Trek game when I first started. His name was John Manahaw. And he was the best at ad-libbing, coming off the cuff. Anything that the GM threw at him, he reacted well to it. He took everything in stride. In fact, in his honor, on his very last game, we did one of those Cruise Goes Nuts episodes of Star Trek for our role-playing. So all of it, and we didn't tell him that this was going to happen. We had all planned this, as a surprise going away scenario for him. And we came up with some of the weirdest crap. I mean, I was playing a Vulcan that basically became a hippie. He didn't know what to do. It just and he just rolled with the whole thing. So hats off to John, one of my favorite players I've had the honor to roll dice with.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to say that my best player was a good friend of mine in high school in the early part of college named Bobby. He didn't play often with us, but when he did, he always brought a certain je ne sais quoi to the game. And he is, to this day, the only player I have ever played with that played a Kender well. They are a very, very hard race to play without just being stupidly obnoxious, and he was in it in every way, shape, and form. And in fact, when he would come to visit me, I went to UNCG here in Greensboro, and he went to App State, which is in the mountains, for those who don't know North Carolina. So he would come to visit me like on some weekends, and he would always sit in on the games. And I always would have him come in when my groups were giving me a little bit of trouble, and he would be like the DM enforcer to kind of straighten shit up and get them back moving again. And the best part is he did it perfectly without ever letting on that he was kind of my stick or carrot as the group needed, because he would come in with these great characters that he played to the hilt, and he was a great like one-shot character player, and it came in, would do things perfect, and off he went. I miss him. He's living in Raleigh now. I haven't seen him in years, but so my worst, and I've actually been sitting here listening to you guys thinking, I am actually going to talk about the worst player that I ever had that was referenced to me by Christopher Jones, who was a guy I played with in college, the one who called me out on the last video for saying this wasn't the one he was thinking of. So we had this guy, and I'll be honest, I don't even remember his name. And he used to start every game session by drinking a 40 ounce. Like, he'd bring them in brown paper bags, and that's how he would start the session. Wow. And keep in mind, this group that I was running from, it was D&D, but it was like dirty D&D. I think the best alignment I had in the entire group was lawful neutral, and they were all on like that dark side. So I mean, it was evil. I let some evil folks in. There was a lot of chaotic neutral in the party. And just in case anyone's wondering, as I proceed with this story, this is why I don't have evil alignments in my game anymore, because I realize there's just no room for it. So they're playing mostly evil characters, and this particular player is playing an evil cleric of, it might have been a god of murder, something like that. And their priesthood, like their church that they were working for, because they were all kind of working under the same church, was trying to gain control, like political control over an area. But the local druids were giving them some guff. So they were being sent into this area, this little town near a forest where the druids had a grove. Their whole idea was to find the grove and corrupt it and drive out the druids, so the druids would have no reason to stay there. So they go in and they find the druids' grove, they locate where it is, and now the question is, how do we get rid of the druids? Do we burn the forest down? Whatever. This priest goes...
tell the story.
Yeah. This priest, who is about 2/3 of the way through his second 40 in the span of 3.5 to 4 hours, 3 sheets to the goddamn wind, goes, I got it. And he's like, is there an orphanage in the town? And I went,
no, it
yeah.
gets worse. No.
He's like, yeah, there's an orphanage in the town. So he's like, all right, I'm going to get a bag and dress up like Santa Claus and go to the orphanage.
Oh,
and I'm
no.
like, all right, it's the middle of summer, but let's see where you're going with this.
No.
So he gets the rest of the party to hang out while he goes and pretends to be Santa Claus at this orphanage. and it goes bad. And I'm not going to give many of the details from here on out, but
Thank you.
this player, in the span of the next 10 minutes, came up with the most horrifying descriptions of terrifying abuse and murder that I have ever heard come out of another human being's mouth. I would have called the game earlier, but all of us are sitting around staring at this fucker like a train wreck. Like, it's literally, we're just watching him continue to talk, and it's just like, oh my god, I can't even imagine this shit is coming out of your mouth right now. So I'm just like, all right, after my shock has worn off, I'm like, all right, we need to fucking call this right now. So I call the game. I'm like, we're done. This is not happening. You guys, like, I think they ended up finding a way to destroy the grove, but it was like they decided to burn it and like, kill people at the grove. Whatever. It was, but, like, my brain wasn't focused on that. So I'm like, we're done here. So I talked to the guy, and I'm like, hey, man, this is absolutely not cool. Not cool at all. I don't, from this point on, no drinking at the games. Nothing. Anything like this else, and you're gone. So they agree to it. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe the guy is just, I mean, he's got some issues, obviously. Maybe the alcohol is the problem. So I let him come back for the next game, and they end up getting, I don't recall how they ended up getting on a ship. But they're on a ship, and a fight breaks out, and he doesn't have any weapons. So he starts describing him as a cleric shitting into his own hand and using it as a thrown weapon. And that was the point where I was like, all right, I'm absolutely done. I am absolutely done with this person. So that is the worst player I've ever played with. The PG version of that story. It would go horrifying very, very quickly if I told even half the shit that came out of his mouth. It was terrifying. Alicia's heard the full story, and you guys heard her begging me not to tell it. So.
No, oh, God, I was so glad I hadn't met what was going on.
Yeah.
Oh, it was terrible.
So, so I have seen quite a bit of darkness and quite a bit of light. So, let's get on to a happier topic then.
Please.
What has been your most triumphant moment as a character in an RPG?
Oh, man.
I got this.
Go for it.
It's what's triggered this current campaign. Banishing an Efreet to the elemental plane of water.
That's a pretty good one. So what he means by that is the current campaign I'm running, that Efreet has gotten himself back to his home plane and is now seeking a way to return to the prime material to kill them all. So they're trying to fight his minions off and prevent him from getting the ritual stuff that he needs to come back. So, who's next?
Not me. I got too many.
Okay. Well, don't. The one that I would think of for you, don't tell it because we were asked a question about winning D&D, and we'll get to that later.
Oh, I can't tell that. Okay, that narrows it down.
You'll tell it. You'll tell it later.
Okay.
You're the only one I think can answer that question seriously.
Okay.
So, I'll go ahead and go mine then if you guys are still thinking.
Go ahead.
So, during one of the games that I played with this god-awful GM that I talked about earlier, we were running this weird world of his, and all of a sudden, like, laser guns started showing up in it. Like, we would loot dungeons, and we would find laser guns. And we're like, what the fuck is all this? Or we would loot it and find just this anachronistic piece of technology, and we're just like, what the hell? So campaign goes on, and it gets stupider and stupider. By the end of it, we're all wielding freaking laser beams because why use bows and arrows when you could shoot somebody with a laser? And eventually we get taken to the moon. And the moon on this world is basically a giant space station that's just filled with these big display monitors where our enemies can apparently like jump through them and appear at places. So we're just like, what the fuck is this? And at this point, I'm very tired of this DM bullcrap. And so everybody else is like, wow, and he's trying to like wow us with this the how superior these techno orcs that we've been fighting all freaking campaign are, and how they're better than us, and blah 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 blah. And I just turn to him and I'm like, I break a monitor. And he goes, what? I'm like, I grab my two-handed weapon and I break a monitor. And he's like, you can't do that. I was like, you damn right I can. I got a big old two-handed sword. I'm going to break this monitor. And so I just start going apeshit and breaking monitors left, right, and down the center. It turns out, I got to at least admit that he was at least slavishly loyal to his own stupid-ass ideas that this worked. But apparently the monitors were, in a way, like the real existence of the world. Because it was all portals and shit, so like as I'm breaking these monitors, like we're destroying the world. And so everyone kind of sees what's going on, and they're kind of about sick of this shit too. So the rest of the party joins me and just trashing the hell out of these monitors. We end up destroying the whole spaceship and crashing the moon into the planet, killing everyone. His whole campaign dies in a fiery space explosion, and everyone's characters died, and he's looking at me like I'm the asshole. And he's starting to talk, like, to get the rest of the group to try and turn on me. And nobody is, because, I mean, we're sick of this shit. And he's like, well, why did you do that? And the response was, because I'm tired of fucking techno-orcs. So, that was my most successful thing. I blew up an entire planet to get away from techno-orcs. So, what you got, Alicia? Your turn.
No, I have too many. Crap.
Just pick one.
All right. I prevented an avatar of an evil god from entering the world by using levitation boots.
I think you're gonna have to tell more of that story. It's not as impressive when it sounds like nonsense.
One of the characters in the campaign that we were currently running got killed by an evil priestess that was masquerading as a good priestess in the town, and none of us knew that she was evil until like later after this character had died. We find out that she's evil, and we go down underneath the good temple that we thought was still good, and she's got like this whole big freaking silver evil altar set up, right? And our dead friend's corpse is on the evil altar, and she's currently like infusing it with like all this evil wuju magic, and is going to bring her evil freaking god into the world as an avatar to, I guess, just jack up everything, right? And the whole party is fighting the evil priestess while the body of our friend is still being infused with the evil. This evil god is going to wake up any minute, right? So I'm like, oh no. No. I go over to the altar, I pick her up, because as long as she's on the altar, she's getting infused with all this evil crap, right? I kick the boots of levitation. I go up as far as it'll take me. As I'm going up, the evil god wakes up. And he starts, like, choking the shit out of me and, like, doing damage and all kinds of other stuff. And I'm like, I ain't letting go. You can't make me let go. I get all the way up to the absolute top of where the boots would take me. I turn them off. We both fall to our death. and I stopped the evil god from having his avatar. Woo, go me. With boots of levitation.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. All right, Michael, your biggest success.
There's a bunch of them. That's the issue.
I'm surprised you've had to think this hard. I would have thought a certain backstab on a certain flying reptile would have been your.
See, that's an amazing thing that happened, but it's not the best one.
Okay, well, what you got then? Got to pick one.
Let's see. Best one, and well, I guess the one I liked the most was when before I left for Florida, we were in the Star Wars campaign, or the Star Wars, that one shot for Star Wars.
Okay.
And we're in the room, we're having a shootout with these Imperial officers or whatever, and stormtroopers come busting in the door. And I was a rogue Han Solo type, and I just looked and I was like, nah, they're rebels. And used that bluff ability and just like maxed all my points in it. And they're like, yeah, they are rebels, and shot them.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Alicia,
that was my
voice.
favorite moment. Just to be like, no, it was him, he did it.
That was a pretty good one. All right, so next one before we get into the questions. Last one. What has been your biggest failure or defeat as a character in an RPG? If you guys need a minute, I can go with mine. I've been thinking about it all day. All right, I'll go with mine. So I was playing, again, another campaign in high school under this douche DM, but it was actually his least douchey campaign. And I was a Minotaur named Kazgaroth. We got to do point buy, like, back then, and his point buy was, like, really generous. So I'm like a crazy Minotaur with, like, no intellect, no charisma, no wisdom, but I was rocking 20s in strength and constitution. So I literally would regenerate from my wounds. I could hit a brick wall with a backhand and knock it down. Just this absolute beast of a combat monster. So much so that the other players were afraid of me. I was this like low wisdom, low charisma, snarly beast. So they're not sure how to deal with me. And my best friend at the time was playing a dark cleric by the name of Akbar Margul. And he was one of these guys who is just like, I cannot be around a situation that I can't control. So he starts befriending my Minotaur, who's like, all right, cool, this is a guy who can heal me, whatever. I don't give a shit about his god, but whatever, he'll let me stay in the fight and keep killing things. But I'm like single digits int and wisdom, so whatever. And so basically, like, as he's making me his buddy, he starts telling me about this potion that he brews that will help me and keep me alive in combats and basically be a potion of vitality. And so he proceeds to start what he told the DM, and I wasn't privy to, was that he was basically feeding me a lingering poison. To the idea of basically if it gets to a certain concentration, my character's just going to die. So they cook up this poison that's going to stay in my system forever. And then I get told after a dozen games, maybe more, the priest sits me down and explains, I've been poisoning you for the last 5 months. All I have to do is introduce one more element of this poison, either via your drink, sticking you with a dart, whatever, and you're going to die, and there's nothing you can do about it. You're my slave now. And I was just like, I mean, I couldn't be angry at the player because it was he was a god, he followed a god, I think, of snakes or something. So, like, it was perfectly in character. Even the DM ran it well because he didn't give away any clues, which he was lousy for. But it was just like I felt so defeated because I basically served the rest of that character's life in that campaign as the hired gun, well, the slave gun for the priest, and I was like, oh, that's just defeat in its most bitter form. So what's next?
Well, let me start mine off by say 9 times out of 10, if one of my character dies, I don't want him brought back. It's just the way I play. I made that exception once, but in this particular case, I didn't. I think the campaign in which I played Xavier, I failed in helping get somebody's lycanthropy taken away. I think that was my biggest failure.
Mm-hmm. All right.
My biggest failure was our Arcanian campaign. That first session when I decided to roll with the Minotaur Mage. And decided, yeah, I'm a Minotaur. I don't have to follow the rules of being a mage where you don't get in combat. I'm a Minotaur. I have 18 strength. I'm going to go up and punch something. And then subsequently decided that I could just break a door down that was not exactly a door, and then the door killed me.
Yeah. What did we learn about mages that night, Michael?
Avoid combat. So, in summary, my biggest failure is playing a Minotaur and being killed by a door.
I think that's a big failure. All right, Alicia, your biggest failure.
Valina.
I think you're going to have to explain more than that for the folks at home.
I know. It was our first 4th Ed game, and I rolled a paladin. And she was supposed to be like this big deal, this great hope for like the salvation of a country and a religion, and because things were going bad, and she fell in love with a warlock, and it was really just a bad situation, like the whole deal. And it ended up we were on a quest to go. We found this out after all the characters died, that we were on a quest to find the remains of her gods, because her gods at one point were mortal, and this was going to help reform and revitalize her church. Anyway, the entire party dies, and we managed to get everybody brought back by basically Deus Ex Machina brought us back. Everybody except the warlock. The warlock decided that he would rather stay in hell. And it broke the character. And she fell. And let the entire country, her religion, and everyone down.
And what we learned from that was gods before hoes, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. So we've been doing this for about an hour. Time to get into our questions, even though I'm sure we could continue going on this topic for another several hours. So our first question's here from Vince Venturella. He asks, have you ever had a bad ending to campaign leave a sour taste for the whole campaign, even if the game might have otherwise been decent?
Yeah, the campaign where we all got eaten by a Hydra.
Yeah, being shit out of Hydra's ass is pretty bad.
Yeah, I'll give that one.
I love that character.
Yeah,
look, the only person whose character is dead, truly, in that campaign is Alicia's. I was a pixie, so I got reborn. You still have to serve that demon lady for 200 years. I mean, me and you are still technically alive.
For me, I don't know. I don't know that it's the ending of a campaign to leave a sour taste. Now, I've had situations where I've played in a campaign and then one player has turned out to be such a gigantic uber douche master that they leave the campaign and just their whole presence that had once been attached to it like sours the whole campaign and things kind of go off the rails for that. But I don't know that I've been in a campaign that's just sort of soured at the very end. So here's number 2. Have you ever had an argument in character between players that ended the game for that particular group of characters? I.e., everyone was still being an adult, the players were still happy, but the characters themselves couldn't reconcile.
So, as in character, we were not buddies, but out of character, we're still friends.
Right. And it was so bad that it made the game break down, or made those characters have to leave.
No. Every time that like a big in-character argument breaks out and it wrecks the game, it usually wrecks friendships too. Because people tend to take things a little too personally.
I'll be honest, Alicia and I have had a bad run of playing with a lot of immature, whiny dicks, who basically end their participation in the game because their characters don't get their way with their storyline or what have you. So I think more of our issues with arguments between players erupt past that point. What about you, Skip, Michael?
I've never had where it is the campaign has to introduce 2 new characters because those characters can't get along.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because I think me personally, I'm willing to kind of go, all right, well, bygones are bygones, and just ignore that happened.
Right. How about you, Skip?
Yeah, back in college, it was a Champions game I was playing in, and it's if you're familiar with Champions or superheroes in general, it's 4-color. So there's not a lot of death in it. But this one character came in and basically pulled a Superman and like wrecked the entire town, and then refused to do anything to help rebuild it. And it just pissed all the characters off to the point where we just didn't want to play that game anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the guy ended up being a douche and dropping out of school anyway, so we never saw him again. But still, I think that counts.
Yeah. So, next question. This one is from Nick Fensky, and his question is, have you ever, quote-unquote, won D&D? Now, I will say no, but there is someone that we've joked long and hard has been part of a group that has won D&D. So, Alicia, if you would go ahead and tell the story about how you guys won D&D.
Yes, I have won D&D. Thank you. No applause is necessary. Me and our party were playing in 3.5, and we had come across this gem in the middle of a graveyard that was summoning undead, like powerful undead to it, and, big bad crystal. It's about yay big. At the time, I was playing a big freaking barbarian with an axe and not much upstairs. In fact, he created an entire mountain range. That's an entirely different story. But in how I won D&D, me being the stupid freaking barbarian, other party members go, that crystal is summoning all these powerful undead. It's going to kill us. I go, oh, the crystal's doing it? Fine. I smash the crystal. Josh is like, okay, you smashed the crystal. It's in 2 pieces. Is it still working? Yes. Okay, I smash it again.
Well, hold on. Let me clarify for a minute. So,
Okay.
like, the crystal wallet was together was summoning X number of like this level undead every so often. When they broke it in half, it basically summoned weaker undead, but each piece was summoning them. So there was more weaker undead. So we went from like wraiths to ghouls, and then you can keep going.
Yeah, I kind of smashed that thing into a million pieces. So it was summoning like just massive amounts of zombies at that point, I guess.
Mhm.
And in the middle of the graveyard, there is a abandoned temple that is still consecrated to the Lord of the Undead in this particular game setting. The priest in the party is actually a priest of the Lord of the Undead. Of the Lord of the Dead, not undead, but whatever. So we make a run for it from like the massive horde of zombies that is coming after us because we're like what? Fourth
Fifth level.
Fifth level?
when this happened.
Fifth level. Okay, fifth level. So we make a run for it. We make it to the temple. One of the rules about these clerics is any undead that sets foot into a consecrated temple of the Lord of the Dead is immediately put under the control of the highest level priest in that temple, which happened to be our priest. So we basically took it and leveled from level 5 to like level 20 and then got bored.
They farmed what is essentially an infinite number of undead for God knows how long with these busted ass pieces of rocks.
My God.
Because the undead would come rushing into the temple, get controlled, and then I smash them with my axe.
Right.
Yeah.
So they were just plowing through these undead, and I was like, after God, we probably did that for 2 hours, and I was like, so how much XP did we get? We just calculated up as like everybody gained a level. Let's keep going, and we were just like, all right, well, you guys aren't expending anything. The barbarian had the endurance feat or the endurance skills and feats and whatnot out the ass. So we're like, all right, you could theoretically do hard labor for 8 solid hours. So we did the math on it, and it was something like 2 days later they were all 20th level from killing the zombies. So we were just like, you know what? Screw this noise. We ended that campaign and just declared that they had won D&D. So that's a story that's stuck with us since then. Anybody else tried to win D&D?
Well, I was playing in a campaign, in a second edition campaign back in college, and the overall theme was to collect the pages of this book and keep it away from the bad guys, basically. Well, my shift got changed, so about halfway through the campaign, I had to leave. But they continued on with the campaign, trying to collect all these books and everything like that. Well, from the very beginning of the campaign, we had a guy named Bob was playing a thief. And we knew he was a thief. We knew he was bad, but he had his uses, so we kept him along. So the entire campaign was spent keeping the book out of his hands. Okay. So you kind of know where this is going. I come back for the very last game. I got the night off, so I come back. I wanted to watch the closing of the campaign. So the paladin, the guy who was playing the paladin, they were holding off these big demons in this portal so that you could throw the book in there to get rid of it, basically, keeping it out of the hands of the bad guys. Well, while the paladin was fighting all the demons off, the thief was beside him, and the paladin just said, "Here, hold on to this book, and when I tell you, throw it into the pit." So Bob went, "Okay," and he kept fighting, and Bob just turned invisible, disappeared. As the entire book, didn't throw it in there, game over.
Wah, wah, wah.
Awesome.
I thought that was a lose D&D situation, isn't it?
Well, no, for Bobby, he won.
Oh, okay.
Technically, he did.
All right.
Spent the entire campaign keeping it away from him in 2 seconds. Oh, well.
There you go.
So
Here you
next question. This one's from Timothy Buer, which I think is War General T. I think he sent it. Anyway, how would you start a new campaign with everyone at level 1? Number 1, start with mini side quests and all meet up at a point. 2, use a starter box set. Or 3, start everyone off as a meeting. Or if you have a better idea, throw it out.
You were a bunch of dudes at a tavern. There's a mage. You don't have a mage.
Let's see if I've got one.
Yeah.
You all are sitting at different tables in a tavern when a sailing ship crashes through the window. Roll initiatives.
Oh.
Is the tavern underwater?
No. Roll initiatives harder.
Can I backstab the ship?
Yes.
Awesome. I win.
What about you guys?
Always thought, hey, you're starting out and you're all on a slave ship.
That's a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The other one I thought would be interesting is all starting with the party being dead. Yeah, do like an underworld sort of thing. Maybe go Planescapey with it. Just be like, you all were murdered.
Oh.
Maybe like all the victim of the same serial killer who just gets off murdering adventurers or something, and then set up the whole campaign about trying to find a way back to gain vengeance on the killer.
Eh.
Could be interesting.
Would that be kind of like Wraith?
Yeah. Or you all are a group of fluffy bunnies. One day, a very strange man in a long purple dress comes forth into your field and points a very strange stick at you. As he says a strange word, all of a sudden you feel your throw and change. And the next thing you know, you are looking around at your family, who have all become very strange bipedal people. Begin adventure.
Oh. Can we
You
do
guys-
that? I
want to be a
that.
fluffy bunny.
Well, you guys are always polymorphing shit into bunnies. I thought it would be a cool campaign to do somebody doing the opposite. Otherwise, the world would be overrun with bunnies.
Yeah,
I've done it once.
I like the idea of coming back and being like, I'm just trying to be a bunny. I just want to eat grass again. I don't want to be a level 20 cleric. I want to be a level 1 bunny.
Alright, so apparently that's going to be our next campaign, because this was met with a lot more approval than I expected it to be.
Yes, that is the next campaign.
I can already turn into a bunny. Next.
But no, the trick is you're turning from a bunny.
Bunny druid. Think about it.
If you'd
think
rather,
we'll
we
have
could do... If you would rather, we could do otters.
Otters.
Apparently, Caleb...
I'm cool about it.
Apparently, Caleb says, consider your underworld idea stolen, Mitt. He likes that.
I don't know. I kind of like that too. Like, you actually came up with some decent freaking ideas, and you haven't done that in a while.
Burn! Bitch!
Yeah, that was rough.
Wow.
Look,
I'm the goddamn
last
DM
session,
for a reason, bitch.
last session, I got to hunt sharks. I don't know what the hell you guys were doing.
Well, not only that, but you got to build sandcastles, then you hunted sharks. So that was pretty much your day.
Amazing day.
Their characters went on vacation because one of them died. It makes
And-
you guys sound like even more assholes when I put it that way.
I don't know, I'm
It's his
fully
own
aware.
fault.
I do have to share one more funny story because we're done with our actual questions. I want to share one more funny story from last session.
Oh,
So-
no.
To give setup to this, the group is looking for these various ritual components to stop people from summoning this Ifrit who wants to burn their whole valley and kill them all. One of these materials is the remains of a powerfully negative energy infused undead. So they need to find where this undead is. So they go to this mage city. It's a little ways off. And they're trying to find this information. And the army reconnaissance type fellow of the group, he's a fighter mage, decides he's going to go looking in the underworld to find these, or the underground, not the underworld, to find somebody who might know something. So he actually does pretty well at his gathering information bits, and ends up coming across a necromancer that lives in the city who's basically living there secretly and kind of working as an information broker, using sort of what he can do to earn himself money for his own research. So they're like, all right, undead people know things, let's set up a meet. So they set up a meet, very clean, very quick. Excuse me. They get the information, they trade it, it's good. So I'm thinking, all right, this is awesome. Party's about to leave, go do their thing. Then the reconnaissance guy turns around to the necromancer and is like, is there any other help you can offer us?
Which shall henceforth be known as mistake number 1.
Right. So even the necromancer is like, looks at him and is like, you're asking for my help? And he's like, well, yeah, I've had problems with being afraid of undead. I want to not be afraid of undead anymore. And the necromancer says to him, you want me to make you not afraid of the undead? And he's like, yeah, it'll be awesome. And I'm like, all right. So the necromancer produces this worm with the tiny human skull on it, hands it to the guy, and it eats its way through his flesh and into his brain. So it's made him completely immune to fear, but now the necromancer basically is hitching a ride on his hippocampus. So they're like, holy crap. So they go on with their quest. They're like, we got to get this done because the necromancer has agreed to get this thing out of him once the quest is done, if he brings him back this book that the Spectre has. So they're like, let's go do this thing. So a couple of adventures go by, and they finally go to fight the Spectre. And in the Spectre's home, they find a door that is incredibly potently trapped. But his little tiny box with runes all over it, the thief manages to remove it, and he's like, now what do we do with it? And they're like, well, can you dispel it? No, we can't let it out. We don't know what's in it. So he's like, all right, guys, let's go to the door and just deal with it there. So they go outside to the front door, and I'm thinking they're going to throw it, they're going to cast some magic on it, whatever. This thief just goes, all right, now that we're outside, I open it. And so, boom, big old explosion fireball. And when the smoke clears, the thief is dead. He was killed by the fireball, but he's still standing there and moving around. And they're like, holy crap, the worm turned him undead. So, needless to say, they're not happy with this. So they finish the quest, and the wizard shows up for his payment. And they're like, what the hell did you do? He's like, what? He's undead. He's not afraid of dead anymore. And so they're like, well, we need to undo this. And he's like, all right, you guys don't want me to put you in contact with evil priests. What about a neutral priest? So they barter with the necromancer to take them to a neutral priest who happens to live on the coast. So while the party is doing this heavy, or rather the fighter thief is doing this heavy, like, I need to turn myself out from a... Oh, wait, sorry. Let me rephrase, because the funny part I wanted to tell of this story is before this. So it's going to take them a couple days to get ready to take them. So they take this guy back to their house, where they have this very fastidious butler named Arthur, who is decidedly upset that this burned, crispy corpse is like leaving black flakes all over his carpet. So Arthur decides to volunteer to clean up the undead, figuring he'd wash off all of the burnt skin and he won't be leaving tracks. So the undead fighter priest, or fighter thief, agrees to this. So they get a big old wash bucket and take him outside, and they make some astringents and mix it together. And Arthur just starts scrubbing the hell out of him. So when the group comes back from some errand, they see Arthur with this big bubble tub just scrubbing the hell out of it. And they're like, what are you doing, Arthur? And Arthur's like, hand me that bucket. And they pour the bucket on it, and he has scrubbed all of the flesh off this character. So he comes out of the bath as this big, shiny skeleton. So he had to play the next adventure or next half of the adventure as just a skeleton. But he didn't want to be seen like that. So he tells Michael's character to go get him loose-fitting robes or loose-fitting clothes. And so Michael goes back to town where his sister is a seamstress and gets her to make him a muumuu to put this guy in. So he's
clothing.
It is. And so he is a skeleton dressed in a muumuu going before a neutral priest to get turned back to life. And while they're all doing this, and it's all super serious, Michael decides, hey, you know what? This is on the coast. I've never been to the ocean before. So this big, burly, 6'2" warrior priest goes down and makes sandcastles. And then when the locals are hunting sharks, he's like, hell yeah, I'm going to go hunt sharks. And that was all Michael could talk about for that whole session, is the fact that he got to go spearfishing for sharks and got to make sandcastles.
It was an amazing adventure.
It was very humorous.
Sandcastles are cool, man.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I know that was kind of a rambling story.
I believe that's my winning D&D situation.
Oh, is it? You won D&D because you got to go spearfishing for sharks and build sandcastles last session?
And I bought a skeleton dress.
Yes, you did. You did buy a muumuu for a skeleton. That's not a story that you'll hear all that often.
Good session.
It was a fun one. I can't wait to see what happens now that he's back mortal. But we'll see where that goes.
Bad places.
Right. All right, guys. Well, I just checked the comments after that nice, long, rambling story. We actually still have viewers somehow that have stuck with us through all this. Let's see. One page said... Oh, wait. First, Caleb Goodson says that he had one player that argued about everything, cursing and snarling. He tried to be diplomatic at first, but then he lost his temper, scattered his books off the table, and beat the table so hard as I was yelling at him that I loosened the screws that hold it together and had to fix it. That's pretty damn epic, Caleb. I don't think I've ever damaged furniture yelling at a player character before. And William Page says he's never really been into RPGs until last year, and now he's been part of 3. Feels like he's missed out on a lot of fun. I would say absolutely. I have had more fun role-playing than I have had doing just about anything else. So I think it's an excellent hobby, excellent way of spending some time. And it's literally led me to meet all of my best friends. Not to mention my wife, so.
Everything's better with role-playing.
Yep. And then Caleb goes, no, not Kender, anything but Kender. Usually I agree, but like I said, the one thing that made that particular player awesome is he's the only one that I've seen pull it off right. So I would let him play a Kender in any game, anytime, anywhere.
I tried.
It's hard. They're difficult.
I'm tempted. Do
You
think I
might
could
be
be able
able
to Kender?
You what?
What?
What'd you ask, Michael?
I didn't know Skip had played a Kender.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Briefly.
Was that the Arcanian campaign?
No.
No.
I forgot which one it was.
Yeah. I think you might have a good shot at playing it, Alicia. Maybe you haven't read the source material they come from originally, so you could get it right without necessarily all of the annoying hang-ups that people kind of overplay. You played Lilywell as a pixie, and I think there are certain similarities between the pixies and the Kenders, so it's possible. But at any rate, it's been an hour and a half, so we're going to draw this show to a close. I want to thank everybody who has sat here and watched us jaw out role-playing games for an hour and a half. There's at least 4 of you left, so...
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hey. Usually by the time we start wrapping it up, we don't have anybody watching, so... I hope you guys...
It's me.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Boobs equal more votes. Or more views.
Alright. Guess I'll have to get implants.
Yeah. Well, I thought mine were good enough to make it to make it count, but apparently not.
Dude, all you are is head and shoulders. You don't have any poops.
Oh yeah, I guess so. Well, neither do you. Your name tag's covering anything, so I don't think any of us are sitting high. Yeah, there you go. Shake them a little bit, and we'll get double digits. All right. So, do you guys have anything else to say before we close this one down?
My milkshake's
All right,
breaking the boys to the yard. I don't know.
And in a week in which the Warhammer YouTubers were trying to discuss gender and wargaming maturely, we have ruined it in the last 10 seconds. Awesome. Nothing like a complete lack of female empowerment in the last 2 seconds.
I don't know. Empowered.
You feel empowered? Okay, well, you know what? That just goes to prove William Page's point. It's not all women look at everything differently. Apparently, my wife thinks showing her boobs is empowering. I cannot argue with that point. So we will go ahead and end this show tonight. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you next week. All right? Bye-bye.